Hey everybody, Joe here from Mainline Overland. It is that time of year when the leaves are starting to change and it's getting darker earlier. As we enter into the deer season here, this is really the perfect time to think about those bull bar as well as lighting upgrades. These kind of two things combined are really going to help protect you out on the road, as the chance of hitting a deer really kind of increases this time of year. So let's dive in, talk about what kind of bumper upgrades we recommend and kind of the perfect lighting setup to make sure you see those deer at night. The most important upgrade you can make to your vehicle is adding a big bull bar bumper to your vehicle. There's a lot of different bumper options out there. A or B is kind of always going to be our #1 choice for people. They're really, really well made. They do a bunch of crash testing. They integrate all the modern sensors, parking sensors, radar crews. They really spend a ton of time doing research, development, testing. I'd say a lot more than any other kind of bumper brand out there. When you're looking for maximum protection, whether it be from animal strikes, fender benders, trees in the woods, something with a kind of big hoop section like this is really going to provide the most protection. A lot of people out there are kind of running the center style bumper, which is great if you're looking at some lighting and a winch, but in a collision, they're really not going to provide a ton of extra protection like a full width big bull bar like this would. There's a lot of different companies that make kind of the full width bumpers, whether it be CBI, C4 Off-Road, ARB, Victory. So there's a lot of options out there depending on what your taste is and the kind of style you're going for. But for the maximum protection, we definitely recommend full width bumper with the tube work up top. Bull bar bumpers are a great investment to start off on your rig. They're really going to protect you, whether it be in a fender bender on the street, an animal strike at night, or even a shopping cart hitting you in a grocery store. You're going to be really happy you have this big bull bar on here protecting you and your family. Buy one of these bumpers early. They're really going to pay off in the long run. If you do get into a small accident, they're basically going to pay for themselves right away. I've been in many situations where I'm very happy that I've had this on the truck, taking small bumps and bruises off-road. It's kind of saved my whole quarter side panel up there. Just bounced the rock off of this and really saved the rest of the truck. Not only do you get all that extra protection, but also you get a lot of extra room to mount different accessories like lighting, winch, antennas. So I'd say for anyone getting started with an Overland build, a big bumper like this is going to be a great starting point. And then as you kind of build out the truck, it's super easy to add those different accessories down the road. So let's kick this off and start talking about different types of lighting upgrades. Starting off with the factory headlights on vehicles. Newer vehicles have, I'd say, decent, good enough kind of lighting. But if you're running kind of those back roads, there's really a lot to be wanted out of your stock headlights. Upgrading those, we can either do kind of an upgraded bulb, like an LED bulb, but if you drive an older rig, sometimes the LED bulbs won't work in the older style housings. You're just gonna be blinding everyone. And that's where you might wanna look for direct replacement headlight upgrades. There's a lot of great brands out there that have plug and play replacement headlights, which are a great option to kind of get started. But I think even with upgraded headlights, there's still a lot to be gained from running a proper light setup. Next thing we'd look at upgrading is the fog lights on the truck. Factory fog lights really don't do a good job of kind of illuminating the side and right in front of the vehicle. But upgrading to an LED fog light is a great kind of cheaper way to really get a lot of gain out of lighting on your vehicle. After the fog lights, we'd look to do a kind of spot or combo light up here in the front of the bumper. Whether you're into hunting, fishing, mountain biking, there's a lot of hobbies that we all enjoy that really put us deep out into the woods. And that's where these lighting upgrades really come into shine. For someone that's going to be spending a lot of time driving those twisty forest roads at night, I think it's definitely worth upgrading to something like an LP9 here. So this is Baja Design's biggest and brightest light that they offer. So we have an all aluminum housing. We have different lens options available as well as different colors that's easy to swap out. The set you're looking at here is the combo driving set. So this light combines a spot as well as a floodlight, all in kind of in one light here. A lot of other brands are either getting a dedicated flood or a dedicated spot, but that's one of the big reasons we like Baja is you kind of get the best of both worlds all in one light here. If you look at the light, these three bottom lights have kind of the vertical lens stripes going through. So that's going to be the flood pattern within this light. And these more clear pods up here are what's going to be the spotlight. So ideally you want a combination of far kind of spot right down the road and also more of the side shooting light so you can see off into the woods. And speaking of kind of side lighting, ditch lights is going to be one of the biggest upgrades you can do to your vehicle for driving at night. Some people call them A-pillar lights, a lot of people call them ditch lights, but they're basically the lights that go up on the A-pillar kind of off your hood, and they should be set up kind of shooting off into the woods or kind of off the road into a ditch. And that light is really helpful for if you're in the forest. It kind of shoots off into the woods so you can see if there's any wildlife coming across the road, but it really just creates a full kind of 180-degree field of light when you're driving. So a combination of all those lightings is really going to give you the perfect setup. As far as spot and floodlights on the front here, it kind of comes down to personal preference if you like the kind of the big round style, or if you'd rather do a light bar up here, or a lot of people do a light bar up on the roof. But all kind of three of those types of lights are giving kind of the same effect. You want far spot shooting right down the road, and then you also want a nice kind of flood shooting off into the side of the woods so you can see potential dangers coming out at you. When you're looking at all the off-road light options out there on the market, there's basically going to be three different lens patterns that most companies offer. You're going to see a lot of spotlights, you're going to see floodlights, and as well as work scene lighting. So spotlight kind of says it in the name, that is for far kind of spotting distances. It's going to be a really kind of focused beam of light going far down the road. So that's great on long stretches of road, but if you're in kind of the twisty areas, that's where the flood pattern is really going to come into play. Where a floodlight, you get a lot of light spread, but you don't get a ton of distance. So it's really important to think about those because ideally you want to kind of combine a floodlight and a spotlight together. So you're getting a full kind of illumination of the road as well as kind of off the side of the road. And then lastly, there's the work scene lighting. Those are more for kind of camp general lighting. The way that that light is diffused, it's not going to have a super far reach. So whether you're around camp or just want some additional lighting, more for aesthetics, the work scene lighting is good for that. But as far as illuminating down the road, you kind of want to stick to the spot and the flood lighting options. The last lighting option we're going to talk about today is light bars. So whether you have a bumper like this, or if you want to run them up on the roof, if you have a roof rack, light bars are a really great option because they provide a ton of light in a really kind of sleek and low-key compact packaging. So on a bumper like this, you could easily hide those kind of in the grill section up here. That'd probably be about a 30-inch light bar. They also have some nice mounts that you can clamp on tubing. But it really comes down to a little bit of personal preference if you like the look of the big round spotlights, which are a little kind of more in your face, more noticeable, or if you like the more kind of stealth look of a light bar, whether it be mounted on your bumper or up on your roof rack. If you do have a roof rack or you're thinking about adding a roof rack to your build, that's when it comes super easy to add a light bar up on the roof there. You get a huge, massive amount of lighting in a really kind of compact package that's really going to kind of blend in with the roof rack and not really stick out if you're looking for that more stealth look. The light bars are also offered in basically all these different lens patterns we've talked about before, whether it be the flood, the work scene, or the spot. Baja Designs also has the combo light bars, which is what we would probably recommend for most people out there. So you're getting a combination of a flood and a spot beam all in one lighting. One of the last things you have to decide when you're looking at your off-road light setup is what lens color you want to do. The two main colors out there are clear or amber. There's kind of pros and cons to each light setup. The clear lens are going to provide a little bit brighter light. It's a little bit better for a spot pattern, shooting really far down the road. And they give you a nice kind of clean, super bright light. Whereas the amber is going to be a little bit softer on the eyes. It's going to cut through dust, rain, and snow a little bit better. So we usually recommend if you're doing a fog light or kind of a lower light setup, the ambers work really, really well down low, kind of cutting through that dust, cutting through the rain. You're going to get a lot less glare off the amber lights. But if you're looking for a more spot setup, we really like the clears for a spot. So you're gonna get a little bit brighter light and a little bit better illumination down the road. So kind of our general rule of thumb is keep the amber lights down low in a kind of a more widespread pattern. And then for the spots, whether it be up on the bumper or up on the roof, we kind of recommend going a clear route for the spots. So you can kind of mix and match. Some people only want to run amber because they like how they look, which is totally fine. You still get a lot of great use out of them. But it comes down to a little bit of personal preference there and different use cases. So that's where we come in. We're happy to help you out there, talk through your use case and really dial in what's going to be perfect for your setup. So now that we're down in the shop, we wanted to talk a little bit more about how you go about wiring these lighting upgrades to your vehicle. This is actually a pretty cool project we're working on. This is a local fire company's brush truck. We added a bumper, winch, and as well as some lighting upgrades in here. This is just a good kind of platform to show you kind of the different ways you can go about setting up all the auxiliary lighting switching and wiring. When it comes to high-end lighting like Baja Designs, the wiring harnesses can get pretty complicated, and it's something that you do not want to mess around with at home, dealing with relays and kind of all the high-powered circuits and stuff like that. So when it comes to wiring in the lights, that's something you definitely want to leave to the professionals here at Mainline Overland. So no matter really what your application is, please reach out to us. We're happy to put a quote together for you and kind of help you figure out the best wiring solution for your vehicle. When it comes to controlling these lights, we basically have two options for the switching. We can do kind of an OEM style switch, which in the truck we have here. This has the upfitter switches on the roof, which is a great option from Ford, and a lot of other companies like Jeep and whatnot are now offering upfitter switches in the trucks. So those give us like multiple points to kind of tap in and control those lights throughout the vehicle. We're also able to do an OEM style switch on a lot of Toyotas. A lot of them have kind of factory switch blanks to the left of the steering wheel that we can tap in to have like a really stealth kind of clean OEM look. Those are all great options, but they do run into an issue when you do add enough accessories because eventually you are going to run out of switch positions. So when you start adding more and more accessories, you're eventually going to run out of OEM switch space, and that's where something like an S-Pod really comes into play. So let's say you want to control your light bar, plus your fog lights, plus your ditch lights. That's 3 different circuits being taken up right there, and that's kind of the maximum capacity of a lot of OEM kind of switch setups. So if you're trying to go beyond just kind of a simple light setup, that's really when a S-Pod or other switch controller is going to come into play. With the S-Pod, you can control up to 8 different circuits. So a lot of people running Overland builds would go with the S-Pod just because they have a lot more flexibility with what they can control. You can have your fridge, your lights, your winch, kind of everything all controlled on the S-Pod kind of screen, which is really nice to have everything separated and all kind of controllable on one device there. Another really nice thing about the S-Pod is once you get the kind of control box into the vehicle, when you're adding new accessories, you don't have to run any other wiring through the firewall. The S-Pod controller is going to sit in the engine bay here, and all your wiring just needs to run into the controller in the engine bay, saving you a lot of time on upgrading down the road once you have that S-Pod installed. Thanks everybody for watching. I hope this was informative and had some helpful information for those looking to upgrade to a big front bumper as well as a lighting setup. But this is really the perfect time of year to get these upgrades done. As you're commuting home from work, it's going to be dark now. There's a lot more deer and wildlife running about. With all the lighting brands, different lens patterns, different colors, it can definitely get a little bit overwhelming and confusing, but we're here to help out. So if you need advice on the perfect lighting setup for your vehicle, please reach out to us here at Mainline Overland. We're happy to kind of assess your needs, see what kind of setup you have, and kind of point you in the right direction. Safe travels, keep an eye out for those deer, and thanks for watching.